Made real progress on the front sidewalk this week. I think last week when I put the video up for redoing the front sidewalk, it was just concrete, and I've made it about 2/3 of the way. I said this was probably finished by the time you guys saw a video next Friday, but I'm shooting this on Tuesday morning, and so it's not finished. And we're going out of town for a few days. By the time you see this, we'll be back home and I'll be back working on it. And next Friday, you'll see it completely finished. But I think it looks pretty good. It's allowed us to raise it up a bit, you know, with mulching the beds and composting the beds and everything left and right of it. This had sunk down. Well, it hadn't sunk. It was just appeared lower because everything else is coming up. You know, the roots are working out here and compost and mulch and everything, and the soil seems to be going like this a little bit. And your patio just kind of, or your sidewalks just kind of disappear. But I think it looks pretty good. When I'm doing this kind of job on concrete, normally in the past I would use larger flagstones on my customers' gardens, and a lot of times we would just put them on screenings or crushed rock, crush and run, something like that. And you know, you just use a big enough piece of stone, it's not going to go anywhere. But we would occasionally mortar them in like this on concrete. Either way, doesn't matter, whatever the customer kind of wanted. When I do one like this though, I get the concrete right, and then the rest I can just do almost by eye. I have a small stick about this long with a flat edge on it, so just a basic 1x2 basically, and I just lay it, you know, stone to stone. You know, when I put a stone here, I turn it sideways and make sure these two are, you know, there's no gap between them, and I put it that way to make sure the pitch going up to the house is the same. If the concrete is right, the rest of it I can just kind of eyeball. Had somebody here yesterday said, "How's it so flat?" Well, it's because the concrete work to begin with was flat. I had put a string level on it, and I made sure the concrete was exactly 3 inches below where I had that string level for my stone. That gave me the room for the stone and the mortar and everything else. So it's about 10 bags of mortar, which is more than I'd like to use. This is not a consistently thick stone. This is not a stone with a consistent thickness, which is problematic when you're mortaring something and you've left 3 inches. A lot of the stones are 2.5 inches thick, which leaves you about a 1/2 inch of mortar. Perfect. And then the next stone you pick up is 1.5 inches thick. Well, now the mortar is this thick, but you got to do what you have to do in order to get the stone to appear level on the top. If you flipped this over, it would be the most unlevel thing you've ever seen in your life. Some of them have rockers on the bottom of them, and you know, it's not a layered stone. You know, some of the stones I would traditionally use on our landscape jobs, you know, you could see they were sedimentary rock where there were layers, and you could turn them on their side and you could kind of thin one out a bit or take the bottom off of one. This particular stone, you're not doing that. If you hit it in one spot and you expect an outcome, it breaks in another spot. It's just not consistent that way. So that was one of my to-dos in the garden this week, was getting this going. Also, we put in a hoselink hose reel in the back garden. The area where our hose is attached to the house in the back is a very crowded little space, and so getting in and out of there had become harder and harder. So we basically moved the hose out to the path, and went ahead and put in a hose reel to make it more convenient overall to water back there. We might end up putting one out here in the front garden somewhere too. We have the same problem up by the front foundation, as it's difficult to get. You just really have to do a lot of things to get water out here to the road. You know, we do have the boulders on the edges of the paths so that we don't undercut the plants, you know, with the water hoses, and that's fairly effective. But when you have to make 6 turns, then, you know, something is completely different. So we may put some sort of hose reel out here so that we have 2 different spots to water from here in the front garden. Hopefully we won't be doing as much watering as we're doing right now. You will have seen a video this week on watering and drought, and what else will have gone up? Carex. There's a hosta video going up tomorrow as you're watching this. A video from the native garden will have gone up before this goes up as well. The Empress of China dogwood is about to hit its stride, where it's pretty typical that this thing is absolutely peak around the first day of June. All the photos I have of it being kind of peak flowered, and I don't know what today is. What's today, Steph? 19th or something? 18th or 19th of May. And you can see it's starting to get some color in the bracts just a little bit. But those will get double in size, and then it'll be bright, bright, bright white in another week and a half. Super vulnerable right now to some sort of storm. You know, that one branch that's coming towards you right there is basically horizontal off the main branch. I mean, it's like, you know, like this, and it's got all that weight on it right now. Hopefully that's fine. I probably should put some sort of stake underneath it to hold it up right there, to keep it from falling over. Steph has started cutting back some daffodils. Your patience always runs out at some point. You know, you want them, there's this balance between letting them die back and then being absolutely annoyed by them. I talked about it last week, but they are in the process of being cut back, and we're in the process of mulching those. We have a second round of, when we put the annuals in, and Steph can come up here and show you how much the annual borders have grown. We put up the annual video last week, with all of the things that are in this mix. If you go to, you just can jump to the end of that video and see all the things that we added to the garden this year for annual color. They've really taken off, but these beds are just compost. Normally I come back in here and put a little bark over top of them, but because I haven't done that, there's another round of annual seeds coming up. There's some I see some crabgrass coming up in here. There is lots of old vinca coming up, lots of old, there's even trees, pecan that squirrel planted last year for us. So when those beds are just really vulnerable to having more weeds in them without me putting bark. Normally we do compost, plant them, and then we do a thin layer of pine bark in the beds. And they've gotten so big now, it'd just be eventually, in a minute, they're going to be shading the ground and hopefully eliminating some of that. You're going to hear more noises in the microphone for the next whatever amount of time. This is so strange. There have been so many houses. I've been talking about how many houses are under construction in here. The amount of houses that have been torn down and the subsequent amount of trees that have been torn down because of that over the last 12 months or so. When the train comes through back here, which we could always hear, if you've been following the channel forever, you hear the train, the Raleigh trains in the morning coming behind us. It's right over here by NC State's campus, and the sound comes through. Now, when the train is running, it's twice as loud as it was before. And a car that just sped by over here, same thing. All of a sudden, all the city noises are in here a little bit more, and it has to do. There are some structures missing. Hopefully structures are better at blocking sound. Hopefully those structures going back in will help with it, because that helps more than trees. But trees do have a tiny bit of impact on sound. And, you know, if you multiply the number of trees between here and that railroad track that have been cut down in the last few years, it's added up, and we can really hear more and more sound in this area. So the daffodils got cut back. Steph went through and deadheaded the annuals too. That was another thing that happened. The open garden is, as of today, 4 weeks and change. So about 4 weeks. When you're watching this on Friday, it'll be 4 Fridays from then, I think, is the open garden. And so that timing on cutting these annuals back and having them fully flushed out and in full flower when everybody's here is kind of the goal. And so she cut them back yesterday. We may hit them with one round of fertilizer at some point. And I don't know. They're growing so fast. I mean, I cut them back after we planted them, or you cut some of them back, and I cut some of them back after we planted them, and now they've just gotten cut back again, and they're growing very, very quickly. So may do it, may not. And the cool temperatures. We did have some cool temperatures. No more. I've been installing this sidewalk in 93-degree temperatures. We've been setting records the last few days. Apparently it's supposed to break. Apparently we're supposed to go into a rainy pattern for a few days. I'm not holding my breath. That's been predicted so many times now in the last 6 months and hasn't taken place, but maybe. Let's take a look at a couple of plants. I talked about this Majesty azalea needing to be pruned a bit after it finished flowering, and it's time to do that. We had a cestrum right here, Cestrum parkii. It's out at the fence. It's actually already starting to bloom. we saw one in almost full bloom a week or so ago. Man, those things, it says 90 degrees a couple times. That thing is out of the ground and blooming quick. But any of your spring flowering shrubs that are going to need any kind of pruning, so this would be, camellias, it might be mahonia that bloomed way back in the winter, it might be azaleas, rhododendrons, doesn't matter what it is. If you're going to do any pruning on these, some of them will repeat bloom, like this Autumn Majesty Encore Azalea. It'll repeat bloom in potentially some in the summer, but really a whole lot in the fall. And so I need to get this done as quick as possible, because it's got to regrow, reset flower buds, and then open those flower buds. Hopefully it's got some water between now and then. We've been so dry. But any of your spring flowering shrubs, it's definitely time to be cutting them back. Our gardenias are just hitting kind of peak flower right now, and so those would be another week or so before, another week or two before we'd be doing any pruning on those. And we can get some of these new varieties of gardenias, we can get some repeat flowers on. So that's coming up. So that's part of that weekly game plan thing, is going through your garden and making sure that you don't wait too late. I mean, certainly by mid-June, any of those things need to be pruned. I wouldn't probably do any hard pruning, this time of year. What we're talking about with pruning here is I just want to kind of stop this growth right up here on the top, and that'll allow just a tiny bit more light down in the plant, but it will also encourage kind of dormant buds to just kind of wake up down there and fill in. So this thing will be much fuller than it is now. I just had it in too much shade for a while. These Encore Azaleas especially like a little bit more sun than this was given. But immediately after having some more winter sun on it, it bloomed like crazy. You could see all the spent flowers on it. This thing was just peak purple double flowers, fantastic plant, blooms and blooms. But again, it needs a little bit of a haircut, and it's time to do that. Deciduous plants would be included in that as well. Most of the plants I mentioned were evergreens, and that would be even more than that, osmanthus and conifers and all kinds of things that keep their leaves. But deciduous plants, the same thing. So if you have a forsythia that needs, has kind of crazy branches coming out from it, you can chase those down in the plant, hopefully kind of keep it more natural looking overall and not turn it into an absolute meatball. This deutzia is a prime example of that, where I like the kind of loose habit it has, but I do get this occasional branch here that just kind of runs, it's running off into the middle of the front garden. I'll just cut it off down here in the plant a little bit, and that will leave the plant still kind of a, loose form. This thing blooms, this one blooms for a long time. It's a variegated deutzia, but anything that's running way out from the plant, I'll just go in there, chase it down in the plant just a bit, cut it a bit, and then leave it looking kind of natural like this. Hopefully you're able to accomplish that without turning it into a total little meatball. If you meatball it 5 weeks later, the growth is going to be faster on some of the larger stems, and it's immediately going to look bad again. That's the problem with meatballing, is that if any of the heavier branches that are on this plant are going to recover faster than some of the lighter, newer pieces. And so if I just go across the top of this thing and I turn it into a little round, tight boxwood-like plant, that branch right there that's the heavier branch is going to grow and grow immediately out. And so now it just looks like it's got, having a bad hair day or something, that in some sort of way that, it's got a little stick-up points on it, and now it needs to be pruned again. And that leaves you in a cycle of pruning it where it doesn't flower as much. So again, if you can, especially on these deciduous plants that have kind of an open, weepy habit like this deutzia does, just try to prune the runaways off of it, basically. Prune the runaways back down into the plant and leave the rest of the plant looking like this. This thing, God, it bloomed for how long, Steph? I mean, close to 2 months probably. This thing was in flower, and it just had a ton of flowers on it because, again, we've never meatballed it. We have a ton of plants to give away at the open garden, and we'll be getting in some more things as well later on. We'll likely have some plants from the Southern Living Plant Collection, maybe a few Encore Azaleas. We'll have some other giveaways as well. We've had some other people give us a few things for the open garden. We have garden passes for Gibbs Garden. We have just remembering that because they were sent to us a little while ago, but we're gonna have a lot of things for giveaways for the open garden. So we're kind of excited about that. It's one of the fun parts of being here. You get to put your name down, and we'll be calling names, the whole time. Hopefully you get to take something home if you're flying or whatever. Most of these trade gallon things, there'll be something you can take home for sure. We've got a box of knee pads. that we're giving out. We've got some koozies that we're giving out. Last year we had some hats. I probably will try to reach out to PDS, to Plant Development Services, and see if we can get some hats too. Those butterfly candy hats are, and the Better Boxwood hats are nice. They're super, super nice hats. So we're going to have just a lot of fun and a lot of things here. There are a few more tickets left for Friday evening, a few more for Saturday morning, and there are still quite a few for Saturday afternoon, which is pretty normal. Usually that's the slower group. And again, just like last year, we have an open garden t-shirt. So hopefully you guys will be excited by that. It's a really nice shirt. We had somebody else see it yesterday and got confirmation that they agree that it's a really nice shirt. We should have them in hand pretty soon. So pretty excited about the 2026 open garden t-shirt. Okay, what else, Steph? The daffodils, I think I got distracted. I'm easily distracted when I'm talking about these kinds of things, but the daffodils in the process of dying back, so they've got a lot of brown in them at the point that we are cutting them back. So make sure they're at least getting that far before you're cutting them back, that you can see they're clearly pulling the foliage down. If you'll go to the right there behind the van, Steph, and show that one group right there, that group has not been cut back. And you can see why. It's still green as it can be. It's definitely still getting the sun's energy and putting energy back into that bulb. And so that's an example of one we haven't cut back. The one Steph is jumping in and cutting back are 50% brown at this point. These 90-degree days are making that happen pretty quick. And so I think you can see, a pretty nice view back into the back garden. And by the time you're here, the amount of annuals and small perennials that are in the garden, it'll be 2 and 3 times bigger, will be pretty fun. And also, as you're watching this next week, hopefully we're going to have some interesting gardens to show off as well from this trip that we're taking between while I'm filming this and you seeing this. So I'm excited about that kind of content next week. So we'll be back every Friday until sometime in the middle of summer with these garden game plan videos. I think right now the main thing to concentrate on in your garden is making sure any of those spring flowering plants that need a little bit of a haircut, it's definitely time to do that. It's dry for most people. The video from Tuesday, I put up the U.S. drought monitor, and you can see that it's probably 2/3 of the entire country in some sort of form of drought right now, extreme for us right this minute. And so if you're watering, water deeply. Make sure you're paying attention to your most prized plants. If that prized plant is a conifer, definitely be paying attention to it. We've lost an Atlantic cedar over in the native garden that we just didn't. Conifers just don't tell you. They're dry, so make sure you're paying attention to those right at the top of the list. Any plants your parents gave you or something like that, or you took from somebody's garden in the past, or somebody gave you, all the valuable plants in your garden, be monitoring them closely during a drought like this and make sure that those are the ones that make it through and make it through well, and you don't have to worry about them after the drought is over. So thank you guys so much for following along, and Q&A on Sunday that I'm also shooting today. That's a long time from the Q&A. I think there's like 2 more weeks left for the $12 off t-shirt sale, which happens automatically when you put 2 t-shirts in the store, and the $30 off the weekly garden plan, I think, are another week and a half or something like that, but I'll talk about that more in the Q&A. Thanks for watching.